Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another JVS review of the hit HBO Max and DC Universe show Doom Patrol. Now we are on episode 6 of season 2. This episode called Space Patrol. Quick synopsis, then we're going to get directly into the episode. So, Larry is tasked with handling Niles' old research team when the ageless astronauts return from space, as Niles and Cliff set out on a mission to find Dorothy. A funeral in the underground occupies Jane's mind. So, as we jump into it, I know you also at the end of episode 5, I told you it would be crazy. The fight between Dorothy and Jane was insane. Great fight, great everything humanly possible. And we fully get to see the power of Dorothy and the Candlemaker and why Niles fears this character so much. The point that he destroyed Sunman, which is a very powerful being that's supposed to be inside of Jane, and Baby Doll, Baby Doll, who we've loved since season 1, is basically killed at the end of episode 5, and just that fight and those two very, very powerful beings facing off, I think really sets the tone for the remainder of the season of Doom Patrol on what we're going to get. And this episode opens up with Dorothy dealing with the ramifications of her actions and her being grief-stricken over Jane and what she has done by placing that wish, even though granted, she placed a wish for a good reason because clearly it looked like Baby Doll might kill her. So she placed it for a good reason, but she still feels regret about doing so. And in turn, for this episode, we get to see Dorothy on a journey of just trying to figure out where she stands in life. It is a very interesting thing to see someone who is supposed to be a child, but is actually well over 100 years old, still trying to figure out what it is she needs to do in life and how she wants to live her life. And in this episode, we see her run away from her dad and the home, and now ex-Cliff, the person who hates him the most this season, he asks Cliff to help him find Dorothy, as we find out she's escaped into space. And we'll talk about later why she went into space out of all places to go to. But this whole episode is more around Dorothy just trying to figure out things. Even when she escapes, she's still trying to figure out what it is she is, who the Candlemaker really represents for her, and how will people feel about her actions that she took in episode 5. So it's just a really good episode based around her actions and just the ramifications of what she did, and just having to deal with everyone afterwards, dealing with Niles afterwards, wondering if Cliff is going to like her, wondering if Jane is alive. Like, these are things that she has to deal with, and it comes across so well because, again, this is supposed to be a kid, but this is someone who's well over 100 years old who kind of knows the ramifications of her actions, but she's still having to learn and deal with it. It's really good way they set her up this episode. But let's get into the other people of this episode. As we already said, kind of already know, Niles and Cliff go off on a mission to find Dorothy. And this, again, has been building up this whole season between Niles and Cliff wanting upgrades to be more human while still dealing with the fact that Niles is the reason he is the robot man. And this whole time with Niles dying, attempting to find a family for his daughter before he dies. I think with this episode, we kind of get the jux that Niles may believe Cliff could be the father figure necessary for Dorothy to go on when he has passed away. So just them dealing with this, them trying to find Dorothy, some beautiful, knowledgeable nuggets that Cliff drops on Niles in this episode about being a father is really good. Again, those two playing off of each other, I think, is the highlight so far of this season, because it is clearly a love-hate relationship between Niles and Cliff, and the way they play, the way they interact really works well. And in this episode, when we see them going off to save Dorothy, again, it gives us another dimension of their relationship, which I really like. So, next one is kind of the most minor part of this episode, which is Cyborg. Cyborg and Ronnie. They again we saw episode 5. So they get up again, but this time afterwards, Cyborg is more interested in helping cure her. As you may recall, earlier in the season, it was brought up that Ronnie used to have tech inside of her that, because of some of the actions she took in war and in the missions that she was on, they ripped it out of her. So this episode of Cyborg is just attempting to find out, like, what damage did they cause to her by ripping out the tech? While the whole time she's attempting to find out the damage that Cyborg has in the area of PTSD and why in those meetings that it started out in that he never shared. So she makes a deal with him. I'll let you look at me to try to find out what's wrong with me if you tell me what's wrong with you. Kind of sweet, kind of nice, but in all honesty, this is the only relationship I think ever put on Doom Patrol through seasons 1 or 2 where it kind of feels forced. Like we're trying to force something onto Cyborg because it never feels overly natural with them two. So it's kind of weird because it never feels natural with them two. It just kind of feels like, okay, we need another character, possibly a cybernetic robotic character, and let's make it an interest of Cyborg. It's like it's at times unnecessary. Their chemistry is kind of okay when they're in scenes together, but again, it just feels unnecessary. In this episode, it really just highlights just how limiting both of these characters are and how this relationship thing just isn't what it needs to be. And that doesn't mean it's not going to improve. It's just that this episode highlights all the flaws in trying to set up any form of an episode with these two. These two are always going to be a supporting story, and it's necessary to be a supporting story. So, the next one is Rita, who auditions for a play, and she's been trying to get her acting career back on. And we find out in this episode that the play she auditions for, she thought it was Our Town. Our Town is a very huge, famous play that lots of people know, but instead, the name of the play is Our Town. And it deals with the end of season 1 and how the people of the town are dealing with the ramifications of season 1. As much as I'm going to say, it is hilarious with Rita and when she interacts with one of the actors on the show who is playing Rita in the play. Really funny. I think this is, again, Rita is such an off-tilt type of character that it really works in these little side stories with her. And you don't need anything else because, again, we still know the deeper, darker thing of Rita dealing with everything with her mom and things of that nature. So when we see her interact this way, it is great. It is funny. It is touching at times. It's everything you want in a side story that actually works, unlike the Cyborg one that they're still trying to work on. Next up, we have Larry with the astronaut story. This is the story that, again, has a lot to do with the beginning of the episode with why Dorothy escaped. So, the astronauts that Niles sent away in the 60s returns to Doom Manor. We'll call it Doom Manor because I like the name Doom Manor. So they return to Doom Manor in their spaceship looking for Niles. This is how Dorothy gets to space as she takes their spaceship to go off into space to escape from Niles and everyone else. And also, we get Niles, who had a backup spaceship. He chases after her. Now, in pure Doom Patrol fashion, when you find out how these spaceships are powered, it is hilarious. Again, hilarious, but it is all in Doom Patrol manner of how you would expect something to work that Niles built in the 60s. But back to the astronauts. As they come back to Earth, we realize that one of the astronauts, just like Larry, has a negative spirit within them. And this leads to a lot of discussion with Larry about how to live in harmony with his negative spirit. Without going too far into detail, this astronaut explains to Larry that they've been dealing with the negative spirit for 5 years and they are living in harmony, which is amazing to Larry, considering that him and the negative spirit within him has been together for a lot longer than 5 years and they're still not in harmony. But this This helps explain to Larry, again, still dealing with his past issues. It helps explain to Larry how to live with the negative spirit and how to be positive and things of that nature and how to live in harmony with it and everything he has to do to succeed to these goals, which is something, again, if you know the character of Larry, you understand the stubbornness of him not wanting to give up certain things that this astronaut actually tells him you have to give up to live in harmony with this negative spirit, including the possibility of leaving Earth to do so. Really good stuff here between them two, that interaction, just the explaining of what the negative spirit is and how that works. Finally, a little bit at least, it really, really helps move the character of Larry forward. And then finally, we have the underground with Jane, dealing with the ramifications of what Dorothy did. And man, this is the underground right now is some of the best work done on Doom Patrol is done in the underground and everything that happens in the underground. And this is no different as they are mourning the supposed death of the two personalities. But we have Jane, who is the primary personality, trying to explain to the rest of them, we don't even know if we can die. So how can we have a funeral for people we don't know can die? And just her trying to explain that to them, trying to stop them from throwing the personalities into the well, because as you recall, it's another personality that went into the well before, and her fearing that that's not the way to do this. Even her going to talk to the girl, because that's the name of it, the girl, the one who created these personalities for protection, and her going to talk to her to try to figure out everything. Great work here, great scenes here. We even get a huge surprise at the end of the episode with the underground. Again, this is a pretty good episode of Doom Patrol, and the underground really makes it that way. Dorothy's relationship with Cliff and Niles makes it that way. Even Larry dealing with his stuff with the negative spirit, and Rita dealing with her comedic elements in this. It's a really good episode here. So, this has been another JVS review of Doom Patrol Season 2, Episode 6, Space Patrol. Now, this drops Thursday on HBO Max and DC Universe. Check it out. Let us know what you think about it in the comments below. Maybe we can try to figure out some things, because I have some questions about some of these characters. I need to know if they're comic accurate, because that's what I keep on hearing. I just don't know, especially this team of astronauts that I'm really, really interested to find out if these people are actually in the comics or did they make them up for the show. So if you know, let us know in the comments below. Peace, people.